Our next presenter, Mark Crabtree, is going to present Tony Pusateri into the Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Paul. Good evening, everybody, and congratulations to all the Hall of Fame nominees this evening. It is my pleasure to introduce Coach Tony Pusateri for induction into the Ohio High School Football Coaches Hall of Fame. Currently, Tony is my boss at Dublin Kaufman as our athletic director. I think if you ask any athletic director or administrator in our conference, they would agree that Tony is one of, if not the best, athletic director in the OCC. I'm pretty sure that anyone who knows Tony Pusateri would say that this statement would come as no surprise, nor has making the Hall of Fame as a football coach come as a surprise to those same people. The reason none of us are surprised is because of the character and passion Tony has always given to everything he does. Tony is a man of deep conviction about his faith, his family, the game of football, and his job. He has an incredible ability to build up the confidence of those around him without saying a whole lot. A subtle word here, a piece of advice there, but only when asked. And the next thing you know, you think you've come up with the greatest idea ever. But only after realizing Tony's wisdom led you to come up with the plan in the first place. I can always count on Tony giving me his honest opinion, but the neat thing about Tony, when giving his opinion, he always says, "That's just me talking." And after the conversation is over, you're saying to yourself, Tony's idea was better. You invariably always do what Tony's opinion was. At least I do. I think it's appropriate to take a few minutes to tell you of my history with Tony. As I said, Tony is our athletic director at Kaufman, where I am the head football coach. But actually, we go back to 1978. That's when I was a freshman in high school at St. Francis de Sales High School on the north end of Columbus. Tony was just starting his second season as a head football coach at de Sales, and I was just starting in the program. Tony was named head coach at age 26 in 1977. And I didn't know much about the program, or Tony for that matter, but I learned real fast. It did take a long time. In those days, DeSales was a tight-knit neighborhood Catholic school in a blue-collar area just south of Morris Road. Most everyone that went to DeSales grew up within walking distance. DeSales at that time was full of tough kids and great athletes, but a little on the wild side. Meaning a lot of the players on the football team and athletes in general were as tough as you could find, but they liked to have a good time, in other words. Tony was the perfect guy to coach and teach at DeSales at that time. You see, Tony was a graduate of DeSales as well. So he knew exactly how to handle the tough, wild, and blue-collar players that we had in our program at that point. Partly because Tony was just like the kids at DeSales, minus the wild side. He exhibited toughness at all times. Nobody, and I mean nobody, messed with Coach Pooh at DeSales High School. He was the toughest person in the school, and he looked like he could bench 400 pounds, which he could, with ease. DeSales went 10-0 in his second year, but did not qualify for the playoffs because in those days, only the top team in each region qualified for the state playoffs. It wasn't until 1985 that DeSales qualified for the state playoffs for the very first time. It was also Tony's last season as head coach at DeSales High School, but he left in style, winning the state championship and being the first coach in the history of Ohio high school football to go 14-0. Tony left DeSales to become the head football coach at Westerville South High School, where he turned around an average program and provided a firm foundation as to why Westerville South is one of the top programs today in Central Ohio. Tony was also instrumental in guiding, at that time, an unknown running back to one of the most prized recruits in the nation, Kajana Carter, who went on to become a runner-up for the Heisman Trophy while at Penn State. Tony then went to Bowling Green State University as a defensive line coach for Coach Gary Blackney, where they won 2 MAC championships and 2 California Bowl championships. After coaching college ball, Tony decided to go back and coach at the high school level at Reynoldsburg High School. Tony led Reynoldsburg to their first and only playoff appearance and first playoff win in 2001, which was, by the way, his last season as head football coach. Tony became a full-time athletic director after the 2001 season, and as I mentioned earlier, is currently the athletic director at Dublin Kaufman High School. Tony will be the first to tell you that his greatest accomplishment is not in the game of football, but instead is being the husband to Kim and the father to Antoinette. But I would like to add that his list of many accomplishments will never truly go noticed by most people because, in my view, Tony's greatest accomplishments are done on a daily basis to trying to help someone else's life for the better. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tony Pusateri.
Thanks, Mark, for not saying that my last game that I ever coached, I lost to Mark Crabtree and Brady Quinn at Dublin Kaufman High School. Guys, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. You've all said it. You hear that familiar thing about family from everybody that's up here. I am so honored, first of all, to be in this, and then to be with these guys. And you can hear, I have to follow Mike Mock and these guys. I am so honored to be up here to go into that class with you guys. But I have to tell you, when I look at this plaque, I'm gonna bring it home and I'll have it someplace where I can look at it. But the neat thing about it is it says June 20th. 2014, and Paul, you guys will appreciate this. So it's my dad's birthday today. He's here. He's 87 years old. He did it again, you know, and he'll remember this. He gets a standing ovation, I don't. My first victory, Coach Crabtree, my first victory, I go back in the office, talk to the team, come back into the office, and I wasn't going to say this, I didn't know he was getting a standing ovation. And he's sitting there talking to the newspaper reporter. It's my first, I'm 26 years old. Well, the guy came in the office and said, "Can I talk to Tony Pusateri?" That's Dad's name, my name's here. And he's interviewing the guy. And I had to stop him. Committee, Mark Crabtree, Todd Alice, I know all of these, Mike, a lot of you people had a lot to do with this. This means so much to me, and I'll say it now and I'll say it when I'm done. I know there's people that deserve it more than me. I don't think anybody appreciates it more than me, but the thing that's overwhelming is just being in this. I can't even explain it. I'm looking at it now. But the guys that are here, the people that are here, some of my bosses now and my other bosses, the people I worked with and coached with, and my whole family. Dad had 6 girls and 2 boys, and we're all here at the banquet tonight. It's overwhelming to me. Would the guys that played and coached, just raise your hand, for me, there they are. Look, it means so much to me, I can't explain it. I mean, this is awesome, and I can't imagine it being any better, but that means a lot to me that you guys did that, and I appreciate it. I'm doing 3 things. I got 2 more. That was 1. Dad had his own page, and that was 1. Thanking everybody for today. And number 2 is my wife. And guys, first of all, let me say this: we taught together and coached together, and she made it to the state finals as a softball coach. I think it was at Ashland, the state finals that year, and she was also a basketball coach. So she made it to the state finals even before I did, and I heard it. I heard it live. So then finally we did it, and I went on board. So at my first meeting in college, Coach Blackney sat at the head of the table, and I couldn't wait. Coach Blackney was awesome, defensive guy, and I was coaching defense. And I got my notebook out, and he said, "Okay, I'm going to tell you guys something. I don't want your wives bothering me. I don't want you bothering you. You're going to be here long hours. You're going to be gone from home. They're going to have to take care of the yard and paint the house and fix the toilets. don't let your wives complain or get another job. That was the first thing he told us after we did with recruiting and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't understand what he was talking about because I never had to worry about that. And I'll give you a couple examples. We're playing Miami to go to the Las Vegas Bowl. I think, Coach, you were there. And we're in, it was Wednesday's practice, the toughest practice, guys, you know that. And I'm coming off the field and everything's good. And I get up to my office and I turn on my voicemail. And we didn't have cell phones or any of those things back then. And I forgot to tell you that she was 8.5 months pregnant. And the voicemail said, Tony, we're in Bowling Green. I'm having the baby in Columbus. I'm going in labor. I drove home. Get down here after practice. True story. She drove down. I went to Coach, and he said, get out of here. I drove down, and I made it. She went C-section, and she had Antoinette, I think, about 6 weeks early, but she was in labor. She drove down to Columbus herself, because it was Wednesday. It was Miami for the Las Vegas Bowl, and she didn't want to mess things up. The second thing is I got a great note, and I didn't know Justin Kershaw was going to be here. And he said, congratulations. And he said, tell your wife thanks for the chocolate chip cookies. Now, I coached D-line, and when they got sacks, she'd make them a sack of chocolate chip cookies. So it was a sack for a sack. So in high school, at BG, and then from then on at Reynoldsburg, well, he played at Ohio State. He was the captain of Michigan State, Justin was. And he played against Ohio State. Well, the week before, we watched his game, and he got a sack. She was going to make him cookies, and I was going to bring them to him before the game. And he got a sack, maybe 2 or 3. She made the cookies. On Friday, they get out for their walkthrough. I said, good luck. I know you're busy. Here's your chocolate chip cookies. Well, when he called me to congratulate me about tonight, he said, the second sentence, right after congratulations, was, I'll never forget your wife making those cookies. And if you know Justin, that means a lot. And then I'll say this last thing. Let me get a drink of water. We were at the sales, and we were purple and white before we had Antoinette, and I'm opening up my Christmas gifts. And I opened up this little gift, and it was a purple shirt with a white 55 on it. I said, oh, this is neat, just me and her sitting there. She goes, I said, I can work out with it, because it was just her dad was a sporting goods salesman, around sporting goods, Ted Bennett. She goes, yeah, white 55. So I get it, I go to open the next one, and I said, what, white 55? She goes, that's not 55, that's 5 and 5. That was your record this year. And you might want to wear that every time you work out in the off season to remind yourself. So Coach Blackie kind of knew what he was talking about, and just like you guys, I had the best coach's wife and the best mother, so I love you. Thank you so much. And I will say this, in my mind, when somebody says to me down the road, maybe they say, hey, I saw you got into the Hall of Fame. I said, yeah, we went in on June 20th, and they'll be thinking of you 5 guys, but it'll be, in my mind, it'll be we went in. So. And last, this is the last thing here, and these guys have said it, and I'll say it. This football's given me so much more than I've given it, and I'm not being modest. It's given me so much more than I've given it. And so we have a little daughter, there she is right there, Antoinette. We have a daughter, and I leave the hospital. They were both in the hospital, and I left for the Miami game, to Oxford. Antoinette was in 10 days. She was premature, and Kim had to stay for a couple days. So I drove, and now I'm driving, and the adrenaline, and I know how to beat Miami. At least I thought I did, and I knew what we had to do special teams-wise and stuff. And then I got on 70 West, and I said, how do you raise a daughter? I mean, I really did. I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this is a lot harder than beating Miami. And I hope you guys bring this back to Ohio State with you, because I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I was listening to a tape, and Coach Hayes had died, and I was listening to a tape about it, and he said, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I have to have something to hold on to. And Coach says, he was so far ahead of his time. He said, you don't tell your guys to go to the library, our football players. He said, you meet them there. And I thought, okay. I got an idea. As soon as she's able, I'm going to take her to the library, and I'm going to take her to the museums, and I'm going to take her to planetariums, and we're going to go visit places, and we did. And sometimes the coach, I'd come home on a Wednesday night, you know, and so tired, and she'd have her little backpack on, like 3 years old or something. I thought, oh my gosh, you got to go to the library. But I did. And I got that from Coach Hayes at Ohio State, and I told my wife to put me a scarlet and gray tie tonight. And then Coach Bruce said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care about it. You guys all know that, all you coaches know that, and I thought, I gotta care about her. I gotta, you know, I can take her to the planetarium, but if I'm just doing that, whatever, you know, I gotta show her that I care and show her that I care about other people. Coach Cooper said something that I liked and my wife liked, but she doesn't like. I think he was mad at one of his players once. He said, nothing good happens after 10 o'clock. That's what Coach Cooper said. So we told her that, and she learned that. She's heard it a bunch of times, and I thank Coach Cooper for that one. Coach Tressel got this from Father Hesburgh, and it's in his book, and I think Coach Haynes might have even given me this book, or maybe Todd did. Coach Tressel said, the best thing a dad can do for his daughter is to love her mother. And, oh boy, that one struck a chord too. I got it all from football. You know, you tell them, you know, what do you tell your players? Look the guy in the eye, shake his hand, remember their names. If you remember somebody's name, she heard this growing up. And I don't feel bad saying this because I asked her, what should I say? And then she goes, tell her you brought me up learning all about football. And that's how we brought her up. Everything I learned from you people out here, and Todd and Mark and Paul Haynes and Bob Jacoby, everything Guido, the people in here taught me how to raise my daughter. I'm going to emphasize this, and I'm going to sit down. I'm not bragging. I am bragging. But I'm going to tell you what football did for us. She graduated #1 in her class in high school. She got a very good academic scholarship at the University of Notre Dame. She worked for Coach Kelly for 4 years in the recruiting office. And coaches, you know about recruiting. She was the one that met the parents, showed them around, and sold them on the University of Notre Dame. And then about a month ago, she graduated magna cum laude from Notre Dame. And I think Coach Hayes would so love this. She had a few medical schools to pick from. She's going to be a medical student at the Ohio State University on August 4th. She starts school. And it's bragging, but that's one little thing that I told you way back when, after that Miami game, that football helped me do to raise my daughter. So, like I started off with, I know guys deserve it more than me, but I promise you, nobody appreciates this more than me. Thank you so much, everybody.
Sí, que no se